Sandy Marshall just answered every question for me. Every question that I had about being an actor, about being an artist, he had an answer for. As long as you were struggling from the right place and going for the right thing. And he always said, it doesn't matter how many times you fall on your face. That doesn't matter. As long as you're falling in the right direction, that's what matters. Because one day, you won't fall as much. And then one day, you'll stop falling altogether. Acting is a creative art, and true excellence in its practice comes only through total mastery of technical craft. But that it be authentic and true and vibrantly alive. And to teach the actor means of working with themselves in order to be able to learn how to create for themselves, out of the unique, special individual that they were, different from any other human being in the whole wide world. You were unique, you were special, and you had within you the power to create. If you had an imagination, if you had a real imagination. And that was another major factor. Independent activity is like being in love, passionately in love, and you can't help doing it. You know, it's obsessive and compulsive, and you cannot help but do it. Once that thing ignites in the actor's imagination, you can't not do it. You know, in fact, you can't wait to get to class to do it because you've got to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Because once the stimulus is set off, then you got to either paint the picture, write the poem, write the piece of music, or do the activity and get done with it. You know, live it out. You got to live it out and get it over with. Because it really isn't until the actor asks himself, "Why am I doing a particular thing?" that he really becomes creative. Before that, he's not really, because everything you need, you get from somebody outside. You know, if you're going to, a great example, if you're going to do Hamlet, let's say, and you're going to do the closet scene, well, everything the actor needs to do that, somebody supplies to him, almost. You see, first of all, you got to look like a Prince of Denmark in mourning. You, as an actor, you don't have to worry about that in most situations. They have a costume designer will make you a beautiful suit of black Danish mourning stuff, right? So you should look like a prince, right? You have to have a locket to show your mother, and you got to have a sword to stab Polonius. You don't have to find these things for yourself. They have a prop master will supply them to you. You got to know what to say. All you have to do is memorize what Shakespeare said. He'll put the words right in your mouth. You need a mother. You don't have to find a mother. You don't have to bring your mother from home. They'll get you a mother. Some old character actor, she should be your mother there. Right? You need a bedroom. They'll have a set designer. They'll make a beautiful, mysterious, evocative bedroom there, right? You need to be seen. They'll get a lighting designer to do magnificent, murky lighting there, right? You don't know where to stand, where to go. You have a director. The director says, here, come in here. Grab your mother there. Throw it down here. Stab Polonius over there. Everything is given to you. But only one thing. You see, there's one thing that none of those people can give to you. Not the writer, not the writer, not the director, not the set designer for sure, not the costume designer, not the lighting designer, not the prop master, not the other actress playing your mother. Only you can come up with that, and that's the reason why you're there in the first place. You see, and depending on what that reason is, that either makes the actor live, brings him to full life there, or the whole thing's going to lie there like a moldering, rotting rug on the floor, be part of what's rotten in the state of Denmark, that scene, and it'll be over. You know? But that's very personal, you see. Reasons are very personal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Clearly a fine, funny, very wise man. And that about says it all, so we can just go home now. Welcome, thank you for coming. On behalf of Suzanne, Michael, Shannon, Jake, Otis, and Katya, I thank all of you. On the first day of the first class of first year, Over the years, Bill developed this little exercise called the name game. In fact, before I taught my very first class, he said to me as I was going down the stairs, he said, "Remember the name game." Now, what that involves is the teacher standing in front of the class and saying 2 facts about himself and his name. And then it would start with this student over here, and that student would give their name and 2 facts and repeat my name and the 2 facts, and we would go around through the entire class. And it's an exercise in listening, relaxation, a little bit of memory. And it gives the teacher a chance to get to know the students. We're not going to do that today. It would take us far too long, of course, and we have other business to tend to. And the person sitting up there in the back of the balcony would have a very nervous couple of hours. But I will begin. I'm your host this afternoon. My name is Bruce McCarty. I was blessed enough wheel me off now. I was blessed enough to have William Esper teach me the Meisner technique and to be an actor, an artist. And if that wasn't enough, I was then doubly blessed because he then taught me to teach the Meisner technique. And I got to teach with him at his studio. I described Bill this way once for civilians who, the fact they wouldn't necessarily, that Bill was a very humble person, more on that later, and funny and wise. But I described Bill once this way for some civilians. I said to them, people who are not part of our work, our art form, would not necessarily be familiar with what we do from the inside. I said to them, if you've ever seen a play, a movie, or watched television at any time in the last 40 years, you have probably been touched by Bill's work. And that is simply true. Our first speaker is a former student of Bill's. There will be a number of us today who frequently, out of his love for Bill and this work, has returned to the studio to speak with upcoming generations of students. I know that our students have benefited greatly from these visits, filled with Richard's insight, power, wisdom, and quiet good humor, qualities he shared with Bill and is in all of Richard's work. I first met Richard at a dinner years ago in Los Angeles. 4 of the 6 people at this dinner had all studied with Bill. We seemed to find each other. Please welcome Mr. Richard Schiff.
Actually, Bruce, we actually met. You auditioned for me when I was directing a play. Got the part and dropped out because you had another gig. All is forgiven. I beg your indulgence. I have a lot to say about Bill, and I know this is that many people are going to come up here and speak, and I am going to shorten their time. Dear Bill, before you, I didn't know what in the hell I was doing. After you, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I know how to find out. Before you, I came to a thing searching for how to get to a place, an idea, a picture. After you, I came to a thing for a way to find out what it is I was looking for. There are people, in actual fact, who have lived all of their lives in the thick of the jungle. They have never seen a thing more than a few feet away. When they are exposed to the wide open plains for the first time and they see an antelope far away or a zebra or just a plain horse, they see that horse as a miniature, as a creature tiny as a doll. They've been in the thick so long they have never experienced depth of field, distance, or perspective. People are like that. We can only see what we know to see. We look for those things we already recognize. And when we get to the clearing, if that ever happens, if that ever does happen, that space, all that light, the possibilities that lay in front of us are too small for us to actually see. This is how you came to my life. I had a theater company back in the days when cab drivers in the shake-up room could have a chat, find out we were aspiring to be in the theater, gather our tip money, and put on a play. New York was that cheap. That's how long ago this was. I was directing plays. I found out over time that there are actors that shared a desire to find life on stage that was exhilarating and unexpected. I found that there were actors that could collaborate and share a vision that were actually really good. And I found there were actors that were also directable and who were more concerned about what happened between them on stage than concerned about their own spotlight. And I found that there was a commonality these actors shared. At the bottom of their resume was the name William Esper. So I called you, asked you if I could have a conversation about what in the hell it is you do that makes your actors so accessible and so damn good. You said, come and see me, so I did. Found your office on 7th Avenue, right upstairs from a strip joint. Immediately, I thought, I like this guy. A guy named Howard eyed me cross-eyed, shuffled me into an office so small it didn't seem possible that two people could fit. I don't know why, but this made me like you even more. What can I do for you? I tried standing, failed, tried again, and said, hello. What can I do for you? Right to the point. Okay, we talked for 45 minutes, why I was struggling to connect with actors, what your technique was, and how it applied so well to the work I was interested in pursuing, what plays I wanted to do, where I was from, and what was the significance of the 20-year-old Yankee hat that was attached to my head. At the end of the 45 minutes, you said, well, you're an interesting fellow. You should take my class. I said, I don't want to be an actor. You said you should take it anyway. Try it out for the summer. See what happens. This is what happened. In the next 2 years, I split up with my girlfriend of 9 years, fell in love, got married, separated, got divorced, and changed careers. Listen. You told the class, listen for every sound you can hear. Every little nuance, every squeak of someone shifting in their seat, the truck outside, and the bus 3 blocks away. Listen. There may be a scratching of a mouse in the walls, the whir of a fan in the next room, the breath of the one next to you. I listened. Duke Ellington once said that his music comes from the sounds he hears on the streets of New York. Music. The trucks outside, the buzz of the street, the hustle, the bicyclist shouts at the intersection, the horns, the couple in a quiet argument, the feet, so many feet, the airplane, the birds, and the rests between the crescendos of cacophony, the breathing of the one next to me. You said, an actor lives with a different truth. To an actor, every moment is a peak moment. An actor knows that this thing we call life is nothing more than a series of moments strung together in a mystical chain. There is no such thing as small moments, and to live each one as if each moment was his last. He learns to live mindfully, beholden only to his sense of truth, without anticipation, without fear. To live in a string of moments beholden by truth. Okay. In the next 2 years, I split up with my girlfriend of 9 years, fell in love, got married, separated, got divorced, and changed careers. You have nice earrings. I have nice earrings? You have nice earrings. I have nice earrings. Yeah, you have nice earrings. Yeah, I have nice earrings. Yeah, fuck, you have nice earrings. Yes, fuck, I have nice earrings. Oh, you're insulted? Yes, I'm insulted. Midway through the first year, I got into a fight with a deli guy over $1. I went ballistic because I was sure he cheated me over $1. You cheated me over $1. I didn't cheat you over $1. You didn't cheat me over $1? No, I didn't cheat you over $1. No, you didn't cheat me over $1? I got my $1 back. I wasn't even sure he had cheated me, but I got my $1 back. To live truthfully in the moment, I may have overcorrected just a bit, but something was happening. Every now and then, after an exercise, you would say, you know, Richard, you can do this. And I would say, I don't want to be an actor. Well, just so you know, you can do this. I was doing an independent activity. I thought, well, this will get them. I'll strap a tourniquet around my bicep so I can shoot up some heroin. I need a fix real bad, and the tourniquet is too small, and so I have a problem. You stopped me no more than 20 seconds in, screaming, what the hell are you doing? You're not invested. You're doing absolutely nothing. What is that? You're supposed to be a junkie of some kind? This is nonsense. You had never screamed at me before. You yelled at some others. I always thought because they can take it. You never yelled at me before. I didn't speak to you for several months. Didn't think I'd ever speak to you again. Quietly figured out ways to humiliate you. Thought of other ways of living out my life. Biff Loman came to mind. I'd go out west and start a ranch. Just me with the land, free of this rat race that was festering. In the meantime, I started to really think about these independent activities the way I hadn't before. What was really imperative, what was urgent, what had to be done. Subsequent exercises rendered praise from you didn't matter. You didn't matter. I was so angry, so full of rage, so maddeningly crazed by your insult that I realized I was learning faster and better than I had before, and that really pissed me off. A couple of more times over the next months, you know, Richard, you can do this. I was too mad and too busy finding independent activities that mattered to care. I was here to learn how to direct better. I was doing the exercises for the sake of doing the exercises. Don't bother me with this actor stuff, and don't talk to me. I didn't say that out loud. That was subtext. Hickory dickory dock, the mouse went up the clock. All right, I'll do this too, but I don't get it. I want words that had meaning, that drive me to a thing and tickle my feet, words that make me move, that makes me awake. In time, he said, you have to be like a cork floating in the ocean. You let go and allow yourself to be taken wherever the current drives you. Oh, geez, okay, that's happening. That summer after the first year, I was a mess. I was separated from a marriage that maybe lasted a few weeks. I was alone on this earth. I was broke. I was that cork on the ocean. Even the Yankees sucked. But something was happening. That cork, that little thing, could stay afloat in 40-foot waves, in hurricanes, could be shoved aside by giant ships, eaten and spit out by sharks. You said, just stand there and wait for something to happen. Eventually something will, but you can never know what that something will be. This as a way to enter a room. For me, a way to re-enter a life. That first year stripped me of everything I thought I knew about theater, about buying a thing at a deli, about the passengers in my cab, about how and why we enter into an exchange with each other. What did I love and who did I love and what did I have to offer this world? Then we got to relationships and text and objectives and all of it strung together in a linear, endless string of moments. For all this time, I had lived in quiet terror, just so you know, hoping somehow that you would skip me for the work that day, that you'd forgotten I existed and I would just be allowed to watch and learn as a witness. I wasn't an actor, just let me be, I won't bother anyone. But something started to happen. I couldn't wait for the next class, couldn't wait for my turn to work. I was now sitting in the front, thrilled by the class's work and hoping to be called next. I even talked to you again. You could do this, you know. Yeah, but what about this objective thing and how does it manifest? Because the super objective or what I want unconsciously seems a bit different than what I want consciously, and what I want in this scene is confusing to the overall. Open the door and see what happens. Yeah, right. The end of the second year in the style phase, you gave me a play by George Bernard Shaw. You'll never get this, Richard, but it'll be good for you. Wait, what? It'll be good for me, but I'll never get this? What happened to the, you can do this, you know? What do you mean I'll never get this? Insulted again, I have a good mind to get in a tither, coiled in my own rage, but something happened. I turned to my partner, Robin Lord, who had done Shaw in the world, a lot of Shaw, and I was in love with her, which helped. And I said, teach me everything, everything. How do I stand? Where do I put my hands? How do I speak? How do I dress? Everything. I had never worked so hard in my life. Every facet of where I was, what I wanted, who I wanted, and how do I go about getting all this Shavian, in the Shavian world I would never get. Bill was impressed, but that wasn't the point. For the first time, really, I had engaged in all facets of what it means to be an actor. Not just an exercise, but all of it. All these strings of moments were alive in a way I had never experienced before. Each one burst from the one before. Each one a moment that could last forever, and did, until the next one overwhelmed it. I could hear her breathing. How does that feel, Richard? Well, shit. It, it feels like I finally get it. Well, great, but it will take you 10 years before you really get it. Well, great, I don't want to wait that long. I did wait. You were wrong, Bill. It took 20. And counting. I went and I pursued this acting thing. In the early years, I struggled hard to figure it out, but I kept hearing, Richard, you know you can do this. I might have cursed you a few times, but I kept at it. In the years since, maybe I haven't struggled so often, but when I do, the rut is deeper and darker than before. And always your words come back. I wrote this as a part of the blurb to your book. At times of the greatest need for an actor, whether from that sense of being lost or at the tip of an elusive epiphany, Bill Esper's words thankfully come back like music from somewhere deep in memory. Your words pulled me out of every hole. They made the difference for me. I've been lucky to embody the characters and speak the words of some wonderful writers. You know, Neil and David Mamet, Lanford Wilson, Arthur Miller, Aaron Sorkin, David Kelly, David Milch. That is special. To have your toolbox and those words, that is special. But I've also done bad plays and bad television. Not so special. How in God's name do we make some sense of truth out of this crap? Hickory dickory dock, the mouse went up the clock. You even gave us tools to do the impossible, to raise like a deadlift the utter crap into the realm of mediocrity. There should be awards for that. We tend to want our brilliance to come from sweat and arduous effort, like a marathon runner finally breaking the tape just before collapse, or a mountain climber as he or she reaches the Everest summit. Some colossal struggle to overwhelm the greater elements, the mythic forces of opposition. We want to be heroes. Some great writer, it might have been E.L. Doctorow, said something like, the minute I know what the next sentence is, I stop writing. All this many years later, I understand that now. To be so in the moment as to not know what is next, to build a platform so well, so strong, so solid, that flight is possible and the wind will take you where it takes you. To just be there, to just listen. To not know what is next, that is heroic. It will come, it has no choice but to come. To hear the ums and the ohs, the moments before silence. Maybe that's where the truth lies. Between the words, when we are stumped and stopped, the sound of the one nearest to you breathing. The mouse may be scratching in the walls, all those feet. To take the risk to just listen, be in the world and just listen. Many years later, you and I became friends. We visited, shared stories. I came to your studio and was honored to speak to your students. I am Grateful to get to know your beautiful and talented family, Suzanne, Michael, and Shannon. Our families shared Christmas dinner together. This is what I was thinking. But never told you. Bill, I am a person living and present in this world without fear because of you. I am a husband and a father and a good one because of you. I am an actor because of you. I am an artist because of you. I am just one of thousands that are grateful because of you. And when we come out of the thicket and we get to that clearing, if that happens, if that ever does happen, that space, all that light, the possibilities that lay in front of us will be visible because of you.
Way to go, Richard. A few years back, I was having one of my private lunches with Bill up in his office between our classes. These quiet lunches where Bill would drop little hints about the Meisner technique, followed by these long silences where I took in everything he was saying. He was always very patient with me, most of the time. And at the end of the lunch, he said to me, "Have you seen this?" And it was the announcement that the studio had been chosen in a survey of the Hollywood Reporter as one of the top 25 acting schools in the world. And I hadn't seen it, and I nodded, and I said, "Oh, yeah, that's nice." And Bill went, "Whoa, wait, but Bruce, wait. This is 50 years of my life, and all I get is a 'that's nice'?" Bill was always very patient with me. And I said, "Oh, Bill, no, it's not that at all. It's just that I know that this technique is the only way to teach acting. And this is the best place in the world to learn it. So for me, people are just catching up." Our next guest, I only met an hour ago. But she has felt like a sister in art to me ever since I saw her quote on Bill's first book where she said, "As far as I'm concerned, there is only one way to learn the craft of acting, and that is through the Meisner technique, and there is only one person to learn that technique from, and that is William Esper." Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patricia Heaton.
Richard, thank you so much. That was, I don't even know, nobody needs to follow that. I think you spoke for all of us. And it's just bringing back so many memories to be here. And I wouldn't be here and where I am today without Bill Esper. I really wouldn't. I tried a few other acting teachers after I arrived in New York City in 1980. And there was one class, won't name the teacher, but we hadn't really been given any instructions. You know, they just handed us these scenes, and it was that big scene from the children's hour. And because I didn't know any better and was going straight for the result, it was this total turgid train wreck, and I knew it. But the teacher just let us go on and on and on, and when we finished, he said, "What the hell were you doing?" And I said, "Why the hell didn't you stop us?" I knew it was wrong, and he couldn't help me. And I knew that I was an actor, but I didn't know how to be an actor. And so then I heard about this guy named William Esper, and I was told that it was impossible to get into his class. So I knew that's where I needed to be. I called, and I called, and I called, and I kept leaving these unanswered messages on an answering machine with some guy named Howard. And I kept calling Howard until finally he called me back and set up an interview. You know, I don't remember my kids' names or their birthdays, but I remember that interview. I was telling Bill about all the terrible classes I had taken, where I remember there's one class that was mostly models, and you'd get on stage and the teacher would say, think of something that makes you sad. And then this one model was standing there struggling, and he said, anything that's happened in your life. And she said, I had a cat that died, that was sad. And I told Bill that story, and we talked about Ohio, and I told him I needed to learn how to act, and that I knew I could be good, but I needed to learn how. And he didn't have a place for me, but he made me an alternate. And I was a little disappointed at first, but I quickly realized that even though it meant I had to do 3 times the amount of work, I had to observe twice a week in his class, work with my alternate partner twice a week, and with Maggie or Joel twice a week, it was the best thing for me. It was a real blessing because I got to sit back for that first year and see what to do, and especially what not to do in Bill's class. Like, don't challenge Bill when he critiques your work. And really, really don't miss class for any reason. I mean, maybe if your parents died, but then only if they were paying for your classes. And I'll never forget this one class, and this was on 7th Avenue, and there was a bunch of little, like 3 tiers of bleachers at one end, and his office was at the other. And we were waiting for class to start, and one student asked to talk to Bill right before class, in his office. It was at the opposite end of the room, right? And he went in to tell Bill that he needed to skip this class in order to go to a play opening with a producer because it would help his career. Now, we're just all sitting in the bleachers, the door is shut. But we hear this roar come from the office, and we hear, help your career? Help your career? Why don't you try doing the work, huh? Why don't you try becoming an actor? That will help your career. Get out of here. And with that, this poor guy sort of scuttled out of the door, and Bill comes out of the office, and his head looks like it's going to explode. It's red, and there's sweat dripping down, and he storms over to his desk, sits down, and turns around and says, okay, who's up first? I was so thankful to be an alternate that day. At the second year, I got into his class, and it was so exciting. And as I said, my year as an alternate prepared me for what was ahead, and I was ready to just do the work and just take in everything that Bill said. And they were all wonderful. The improvs, I mean, Spoon River Anthology. That thing is only in print because of Bill Esper. And you know, as Richard said, you know, you would just eat and breathe and sleep the work you were doing. And I was living in a studio apartment in the meatpacking district. And my scene partner would come over to do our practice improvs. And one time he was playing a priest and I was a parishioner and he was in love with me. That was our improv. I'm Catholic, so the improvs were always very strange. And I remember we having a screaming fight, and the other neighbors in the hallway were all coming out to see if I was okay. So we were really dedicated to the work. And then there was this one time where after watching an improv, and Richard referred to this, Bill turned to the class and he said, look, you don't have to do anything. Just listen and react. And I started weeping in my seat in the back, because up to that point, I had been trying to control everything and going for results, and his words were so revolutionary for me and so freeing. And you know, it's something that I still have to work on. I still have to work on trusting and being in the moment, but it changed my life forever. And there was another word of wisdom that stuck with me. Bill said your career is just as defined by the jobs you say no to as the ones you say yes to, and that we had to understand our essence and learn which parts we were right for. And that really freed me up to say no to some auditions, which I really, at the time, had no business saying no to. I needed every job I could get. But it was that kind of confidence that Bill put in me. And his final words to us at the end of the program were, go out and live. You need experiences to bring into the work. And that I did. I went directly to working as a room service waitress at the Parker Meridian Hotel. But you know, a bunch of us got together and we put together a little theater company, and we produced exactly 2 plays, one of which I was in. And I took that one to LA and I produced it there. But you know, I moved to LA with no agent, no manager, no car, and 1 commercial on a reel. I really had no business going to LA. But I had studied with Bill, and I had confidence that I couldn't have found anywhere else. This is obnoxious, but I really felt smarter than anybody I ever met in LA. Because of Bill. Thanks to him. And my friend Michael O'Neill asked me to share a very small anecdote with you, because he couldn't be here today. He said, this is gonna make me cry. He said 40 years ago, at 10 o'clock in the morning, with Bill, he was doing a scene from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And as perceptive as Bill was, he said to Michael, you're going to have to watch your drinking. Well, Michael said he's been sober for 35 years, and that Bill didn't just teach acting, he saved his life. And I agree with Michael. I truly feel that God sent Bill to me, and to rescue me from myself, and to give me the tools and the craft to make it in this business against all odds. And I thank God for everyone at the William Esper Studio, for Howard, Maggie, Joel, Suzanne, but of course, most of all, Bill. He made it possible for me to have the career I have today. So, thank you, Bill. God bless you, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you.
Bill's accomplishments, they're enormous. Some of you may not know that along with creating this world-renowned studio, he created the BFA and MFA training programs at a major university at Rutgers in New Brunswick. At the same time that he was building the studio, he took the opportunity to develop this training program based on his love of Sandy's work, and he used it to further the work and to develop that teaching to a point that we practice at the studio today. It's also important to remember that at this time, Bill directed extensively in productions that are renowned among those who were lucky enough to have seen them as inventive, magical, and for the comedies among them, some of the funniest evenings these people ever spent in their lives. Bill was indeed one of the funniest people I have ever known. And if everyone could tell a funny Bill story, we'd be here all night. Our next speaker has managed 2 careers, one as director on the Lort Circuit and the other in academia. He has headed FMA, MFA directing programs and served as chairman and artistic director at several universities. Bill and Jim were friends for 40 years. Please welcome Jim O'Connor.
I'm so pleased that with Bill's picture you put his birth date up there, because in these 40 years, he would never tell me how old he was. And I was damn near as old as him, and it was a competition. So, Suzanne was kind enough to ask me to comment about Bill's academic career, and I'm honored to do so. We met the first time in 1978 at the University Resident Theater Association. He was there recruiting actors, and I was there recruiting directors. We got along from the very, very beginning. We both loved theater, we both loved teaching, and at that time, we both loved smoking and drinking. We're also both smart alecks. That friendship lasted from 1978 until Bill's passing. We saw each other at IRDAs, auditions, we recruited together, we visited in New York, we had ventures sailing, both in South Carolina and in the Caribbean. And Suzanne, I wore a tie with sailboats on it. To remember that. By the way, I was part of the ultimate Meisner exercise, because Suzanne and my wife Erica and I were sailing, and it was a low pressure area that might have turned into a hurricane, and we had to move a sailboat at night. And Erica, one of her jobs was explaining to Bill and Suzanne how to put on this life preserver. I can guarantee they were listening and looking with every pore in their body. I suggested that he take it back to the studio. Although we both quit smoking, we continued our bond, and a lot of it was based on who could think fastest, who was the smart-ass fastest. I have to confess, Bill won. His academic career was distinguished. He created, as Bruce said, the MFA and BFA program at Rutgers. He was brought there by Jack Bettenbender, the first dean at the school there. And I believe it was the first university program, acting training program, that was ever based in Meisner. There are now many of them, and we can thank Bill and we can thank Jack for that. While at Rutgers, he built many programs, multiple design areas, directing, playwriting, stage management. His status at the Playhouse and at the Esper studio allowed him to hire such other luminaries as Hal Scott, and I have to share, Hal and I solved the world problems on many occasions. Lloyd Williamson, Amy Saltz, and another great theater person who we just lost, Ed Stern. John Jensen, Carol Thompson, and many I haven't mentioned because the dramaturg cut them. One of the great things that Bill did was to face something that the Meisner technique had been taking beatings for years about, but they can't handle language. Oh, they don't know language. Oh, true moment to moment, but they can't speak. Bill went right at that. He went right at that, and he solved it. He moved the whole thing forward. And the reason I know that, because one day after a long day of auditions in New York, Bill insisted we go out to Rutgers to see the final dress rehearsal of a production that he directed. I can no longer remember the name, so I could see how well he had dealt with the language issue. It was filled with style and language and understanding and text, and it just soared. That argument about not handling language was now history. he produced many terrific actors, and there's many of you here today. And I've always found it amazing, and I've certainly known many acting teachers, and I've certainly taught a lot of actors and directors. But one of the things that has always amazed me is the number of programs that I see, at shows I see, and somewhere in the bio, that actor has recognized, and I studied with Bill Esper. That's amazing, isn't it? One hardly ever sees that about other acting teachers, but one constantly sees actors saying, and yes, I am what I am because I met Bill. I think that's truly beautiful. Many of the students have also been part of my life. I've had the opportunity to direct them at Lord Theaters, and I managed to hire a couple of them in programs I ran, and they've always been wonderful and part of my life. One thing I should mention here, although it's not really part of Bill's academic thing, we have to remember Bill taught in Chicago a couple times a year, and I think 77 to 79, and was a major influence in the whole acting that was coming out of Chicago. He taught at St. Nicholas, and many of the students were there, but many were from Steppenwolf, and he had major impact on that acting, which has also been good for all of us. While at Rutgers, Bill was also part of developing the University Resident Theater Association. He served on the board and as VP. He was a strong voice who insisted on growing and improving that organization, which impacts so many artists. I'm sure there are many, many people here today who at one point, I hope successfully, went through the IRTA process and moved on in your career. IRTA, by the way, just celebrated its 50th anniversary, and Bill was recognized in that celebration, deservedly. Bill's influence on the academy and the training programs continues and will be influential far into the future. There are today many programs around the country in which the acting teachers are students of Bill's, and there are many programs that are run by students who are of Bill's. I think it's in a program, but he was recognized and accepted for membership in the National Theater Conference. He was a fellow in the Fellows of the American Theater, and he was awarded the Career Achievement Award in Academic Theater by the American Theater Association. They were all well-deserved. But I know Bill best as a friend. We love theater. We talked about theater constantly. But I have to end in telling, I will always remember Bill, even at his advanced age that I just learned tonight. We were having dinner in Evanston, Illinois at the Orrington Hotel at the IRTA auditions, and we were snowed in, and it was a Valentine's Day, so we decided we would have dinner together. There was a little bit of a spat in the beginning about who would get to keep the rose. But we had a delightful dinner baiting one another. Bill baited me about which directors I thought were the best, and I endlessly baited him about how much I loved British acting. Kenneth Branagh had just released a new movie, and that gave me lots of ammunition to really push Bill about how my preference for British acting way over U.S. acting. Eventually, we finished dinner. Bill ordered coffee. I ordered decaf. We waited for our coffees and our decaf and spent a little more time debating who would get the rose. And finally, the coffee and the decaf arrived. There was a change in tone, the biggest beat change I have ever seen in my life. And Bill said, "That's it. That's it." And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he said, "That's it. It looks like coffee, and it smells like coffee, and there's nothing inside of it." Unlike that decaf, Bill had very much inside of him. That's what he did for us, all of us, his students, his friends. He filled our insides with his dedication to theater, his artistry, his caring, and his love. Bill, thank you.
And to speak to us further about the experience of Bill during his time at Rutgers, we now have a video from Calista Flockhart. If we could please run that video now, Arturo.
Wow, you know, it's been a really long time since I studied acting with Bill, but there really isn't a day that goes by that I don't remember to feel grateful. I feel incredibly grateful, and I feel so blessed that somehow, I guess it was fate, just landed me at the Mason Grove School of the Arts as an undergraduate. The time that I spent with Bill was transformative for me, and it's my foundation, and it's such a huge part of who I am. You know, a lot of people have asked me over the years, what is it about Bill? What makes Bill so special? How does he teach? What does he teach? How does he teach? How does he do it? And I've never really been able to answer that question, but I always come up with one word, and the word is magic. Bill was just a magical teacher. And obviously he had a deep understanding of acting and its process, but he knew how to teach it. And he loved teaching it. He was passionate about teaching it. He had an amazing sense of humor. He told wonderful stories in class. He was charming. He was like the guy that had that twinkle in his eye. And yes, I mean, the bar was really high, and we were all a little bit terrified of him. But, you know, he was gentle, he was kind, he was incredibly thoughtful. And we knew that he loved us, we knew that he cared about us. And we also knew that he wanted us to be really good actors. I remember we were all assembled in an auditorium. We were about to graduate, and we were doing our final scenes in New York. And Bill said, all right, well, let's just assume that you've learned a thing or two in the last 4 years. And with that assumption, I want you to take everything you've learned, and I want you to slip it into your back pocket. And only take it out when you need it. Well, I can't tell you how happy I am that I have all of that sitting in my back pocket, because I take it out all the time. Suzanne, Michael, and Shannon, I wish I was there. I wish I could give you guys a big hug. I loved Bill very much, and I will miss him. And I can't begin to express my gratitude for him. So thank you for letting me say a few words about him.
Bill started the studio in 1965. In 1969, a group of 4 theater artists started the Circle Repertory Company. An important goal for them was to recreate the artistic ethos of the group theater. Among those 4 was an actress named Tonya who felt that if they were going to be a company, they should have a common technique, and she insisted they ask a young man who had started his own studio and was becoming known as Sandy Meisner's foremost protege to teach the company the technique. This is yet another way in which Bill's work came to influence generations of artists who saw productions at that theater. And not just actors, painters, musicians. Rick Sordelay, who we're very happy to have join us at the studio, recently joined us, and is probably the foremost fight director in New York City, has talked about how Bill's work has influenced his work. And in the case of Lanford Wilson, one of the other founders of the Circle Repertory Company, who was a close friend and another mentor of mine, was always firm in his conviction about the importance of Bill's work, both in terms of how it informed his writing, but also in a way that a playwright could specifically appreciate. Bill was training actors who could successfully play his writing. Please welcome Stephen Adly Guirgis, who went from studying with Bill to being one of the most stirring, funny, and important playwrights of our time.
None of my pants fit right now. But I would have come if I had to have been naked. And if I was a good playwright, you know, whenever Tony Kushner's at one of these things, he always writes it, and it's beautiful, and it's succinct. And I didn't write it. I have some notes. And I'd like to say first to Suzanne and Mike and Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your father with us, and your partner, your life partner, with us. And I can imagine that often it was not easy when so many people felt like, "That's my dad, he's my dad." Also, the fact that you two have grown up and are actors was such an amazing thing. And I've said to Michael before, and how much whenever I saw Bill, it's just joy talking about Mike. And Shannon, I didn't know as well, but I'd say, "Oh, I saw Mike in this, oh my God." And it was so obvious, not just how much he loved you, but that you had his respect as well. And you know, for me, I've done a bunch of plays in my day, but my father was an Egyptian restaurant manager. So if I was good, if I sucked, he didn't know the difference. You know, very good, okay, let's go eat, you know? But different story there. So thank you, and thank you for having me today. How I got to Bill, you know, I was never a good student. I think a smart, had some intelligence, but I barely got out of high school. When I graduated high school, everyone went to college, it seemed, except me. I was a bike messenger. Then it started to get cold, and I applied and went to state school. It took me 7.5 years to graduate there with a theater major, but, you know, getting C's, you know, when you get a C in acting, it's not a vote of confidence, you know? And I got out of school, and you know, all I've ever wanted to do was act. You know, but I wasn't ready. I didn't have it together. You know, I would go to like take a class, and the class was kind of, you know, I didn't like it. Or, you know, actually I know Bill actually took some pleasure in disparaging other teachers who he thought were bad, and the word charlatan and fraud. It's a fraud. And I don't know if I had those, but I remember taking a summer program with a guy whose very important in his own right, and he directed some important plays off Broadway. But, you know, the first day that we went to his class, he appeared in he had long white hair and a beard and a cape and a staff. And it was like King Lear, or like King Lear's accountant. And you know, when you're kind of an asshole and kind of an underachiever, you're always looking for reasons to not do your best or give your best. Eventually, I became part of a theater company. It wasn't even a company at the time. It was an actor's base. It became Labyrinth. And I had to audition 5, 6 times, and it was murder. But I got in, but it was like conditional. And when I met those people for the first time, I got a bad back, so I'll lean a little bit. They were all so cool, first of all. Too cool for me, too talented. Everyone could dance. I didn't know how I would survive. But the one thing that I quickly learned was that all the best actors, all the ones that I thought were the best in this group, had all studied with this guy named Bill. So I was like, man, I gotta find this guy, Bill. So I went down, it was 3rd Avenue in those days. Great building, great times, and you know, he let me into his class in the summer intensive, and I don't remember anything except like bang, zoom, 6 weeks went by like that. You know, and 6 weeks of, it was intense. But it was amazing. It was amazing. And then the little exit interview, and he was like, you know, I would invite you to take my class. And I said, the 2-year program, but Bill, I was 29, I think. I was like, Bill, I'm too old. I'm 29, by the time I get out, I'll be 31. I gotta get out. And he said, don't be silly. The time goes by quickly, and when you leave, you have a set of tools that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And you know, he was right. We all know he was right. I don't get to act as much as I used to. I did a little TV thing a few months ago, and the only way to do it, you had to cry, you know? And it had been a long time since I had cried on demand, and even though Bill always used to say it's not about the emotion, because we wanted to cry. We felt like there were certain things, like you had to get naked, you had to cry. Anyway, you know, I went in there at the end of a long day, and not feeling terribly confident, not feeling terribly good about myself, and I knew to find a quiet space and to daydream. Just like on 3rd Avenue, that little bathroom. How many people killed off family members, rape, murder, incest? Anyway, the point is that they did the lighting, and I don't have enough experience. I don't know, like, you know, I did it, and I did it every time, and I was able to do it, and that's, you know, that's from Bill. But that wasn't the most important thing that I got from Bill. Is, you know, I don't think I'd be here without Bill, and he changed me. And the reason how and why he changed me is that when I got into his class, it was the first time in my life that I cared deeply about doing the work, and I cared deeply about being good and getting his approval, you know. And he inspired the pursuit of excellence in such a way that I became a student that I never was before, and I did really well, you know. And then there was one time where my activity, I guess I kind of half-assed it a little bit, and Bill stopped the exercise, and I honestly can't say a lot of things I can't remember. I remember how I felt more than, I don't remember if he berated me or just expressed a quiet disappointment. But it was so bad. You know when something is so bad that afterwards he's like, let's take a break. And you're like, what? Break? Anyway, I had a hat, and on the break, I went down to the Korean store and I found a permanent marker, and I wrote on the inside of the marker, inside of the hat, never again. I never wanted, because I just, and I'll tell you, I wasn't a perfect student, but I'm like months and months and months went by before I was unprepared, you know, because he made you care and he made you want to be great. A couple of things that he taught me, I remember someone was talking about missing class. A friend of mine was doing a play in Chicago at the Goodman and then was going on a world tour. It was Peter Sellers and Shakespeare and all this stuff. And he said, I'm going to fly you to Chicago, pay for your ticket, come to the opening, I want you to be there, blah, blah, blah. Wow. But I had to miss class. And I went to Bill's office, and I got off luckier than your friend. But, and I said, hey, John Ortiz, Peter Sellers, world tour, blah, 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 should I miss a class? And that was not his face. And he looked at me and he said, do you want to watch actors or do you want to be an actor? And I was there. Fuck Chicago, I was there, happily. Another thing is that as you progress through first year, and so much stuff, you know, I don't know what I did between the ages of 18 and 28, but I was deficient. And he would fill me in other ways, you know. And at some point, I started to think that therapy might be an idea to pursue, but I was afraid. I think like many people, when you've, in ignorance, and I was like, well, if I go to therapy, maybe I'll get better, and then I won't have anything to act from. And I mean, it's funny, but like that's really what I thought, and I think other people might have thought that as well. And I said that to him, and he would go to therapy. Yes, go to therapy. But what he said to me was, and I always remember it, and I often repeat it to students or young people, is that he said, Stephen, whatever is inside of you that's broken, that's hurt, that's damaged, that part, he said, the bad news is it never goes away. He said, but therapy allows you to live your life and do it while it's still there. And then you take that and you can use it in your work. And to find a useful application for pain and, you know, existential bullshit was really valuable, as was therapy. I don't want to go on, but I would like to say that his sense of humor has been remarked on. There were so many things that were so funny, but the thing that always struck me the funniest for some reason, on 3rd Avenue, it was a storefront, 2nd floor, and behind his desk there was a window. And when someone did an exercise or a scene that was particularly bad or just an unadjusted moment, Bill would mime jumping, leaping out the window. And if you can imagine someone with the power to do that and yet not be hurtful, and then it becomes the teaching moment after he expresses his utter disgust. Bill was also very generous. We were all broke back then. We all thought it cost a lot of money, and we did have to work for it. When I went, it was $240 a month, It came down to about $10 an hour. And I didn't have the money. And he said, don't worry, you pay when you can. And I did. Suzanne, my bill is clean to this day. But I was proud to pay. You know, he did a lot of rearing. And it was like, you know, there was a time in my life if I could steal something, I would. If I could get away with something, I would. I was happy to pay. I was proud to pay. One time I ran into a guy who became a good friend of mine, and he said, oh, you stay with Bill? Yeah. Oh, tell him Frank Vitolo says hello. I used to be a student. So I went to go see Bill. I think probably to give him some money, and I said, hey, I ran into a former student of yours. Want me to say hello? What's his name? Frank Vitolo. Oh, Frankie. He goes on to say, yes, you know, he had some problems with money as well. One day he came in with a large box of frozen shrimp. Fell off the truck, you know. And not only was he like, you know, magnanimous to accept the shrimp, but I think he took some certain delight in the fact that it somehow might have come from organized crime. Just quickly, he made you want to be as good as you could be, and he revered actors so much, and he was so liberal in the praise of the actors that he did admire. And he could lift actors up into our eyes that literally, if you acted well, it could wipe away physical deformities, you know? And I remember him used to talk about Duvall all the time, and to say, you know, you see Duvall on the street, bald-headed, watermelon-headed, knock-kneed, bow-legged, but you put him on stage, that's an actor. And he meant it, and you know, the hairs on your thing go up, and he used to, when there would be teaching points, he would talk about certain actors, and I know Christine Lahti is here today, and I have to say, this was in the early 90s or mid-90s, so I didn't know you, we didn't know you as well as we do now. But, you know, in class, Bill would say, you know, what are you doing there, blah, 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 you know, the great actors, you know, and he'd be like, Pacino, De Niro, Nicholson, Pacino, De Niro, Lahti, they do these things. And it came up a couple times, Lahti. And when he's saying, you know, Lahti, you're just like, yeah, Lahti. But then, you know, like Jeffrey Stubblefield turns to me, he's like, who the fuck is Christian? I don't know. Running on empty, I think. And it's a funny story, but what's beautiful is that that's how he felt about you and about so many of the people that he cared about and loved in the acting arts. So just to wrap up, I have to say, I have to affirm what Marty said, that, you know, I fell into playwriting, was not intended, and people said, where did you study playwriting? I didn't study playwriting. I said I studied with William Esper. That was my school. That was my education. And just having been in a lot of plays, good and bad, you get an idea of what you might want to see on a stage. But Bill gave me a codified system to try, at least, to write roles that actors would want to play on a stage. And the other thing about Bill, too, is that he loved language. Oftentimes, the language was secondary when we were working on stuff, but his love for a great language was apparent and also inspired me. And lastly, just to close, I called an old friend, Abigail Desser, who I studied in school with, and like I said, I can't remember, there's a lot of things I don't remember, but there was this one exercise that me and her did. And listen, we were good students, but I don't think we were the best or the worst. We were just who we were, you know? And we did this scene, it was one of those things, she has the activity, I'm coming to the door. Her activity is like, it's her birthday, she's expecting me to propose to her. some other circumstance. She's preparing for joy, and I'm coming in with, I don't know, some shit like we got to break up or the car got towed. Anyway, and then I'm done. Anyway, I entered the scene, improv progressed to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, and she, I don't know, told me some bad shit and ran out of the room. And I was so outraged that I ran after her, and we went from being in the classroom to arguing in the hallway, and then down the narrow stairs, down into the street. And Bill eventually opened the windows. He said, "Get out of the street, you fool." And the best way I could close to say is like, we might have been fools, but we weren't fools. Because what was going on up there was like a church or a synagogue or a mosque. And there was a teacher up there. And things were happening up there that was truly special and truly worth every ounce that you had. And really, we weren't fools, but we were disciples. And our foolishness was just a testimony to how far we were willing to go, but then also the joy of realizing that you could extend a scene and not even be aware that you're out in the street, you know? But I hope that I've communicated the importance of Bill in my life, and I know in all your lives. And you know, one of the different ways that he would compliment you, sometimes he would say, "That's good what you're doing there. It's good what you did there." And I guess what I'd say to Bill is, it's good what you did here. It's really fucking good.
Before Bill wrote his books, when I came to study with him, he recommended to me that I read Eleanor Aduza, A Mystic in the Theater and a Zen in the Art of Archery by Michael Herriget. But now, students looking for insight and inspiration and something to help them get over their fear of taking the leap into their dream, we have Bill's books. Let's think about this for a moment. The Actor's Art and Craft, that's what Bill called his first book. That alone perhaps tells us all we need to know of this man's deep and abiding respect for his calling and for all those who practice it. To talk with us more about that and of his experience of Bill as a writer, please welcome Damon DiMarco.
The original title for The Actor's Art and Craft was God's Acrobats. Does anybody know where the term comes from? This is the pop quiz part of the show. Nobody knows where it comes from. Martha Graham, it comes from what she called her dancers, God's acrobats. And Bill honestly felt not only that actors are God's acrobats, that we dance to this music that so few people, especially in this day and age here, this rhythm of creation, that we let it take us wherever it will. He felt that way not only about actors, but about artists, period. And so I love that title because it had so much of Bill's poetry in it, and Bill was a consummate poet. He had the heart of a poet. He had the soul of a poet. And so we proposed this title. We loved it. Publishers hated it. They said, it's got to have acting in it. It's got to have actors and acting in the title and Meisner technique, and it's got to have that stuff because that's how books sell. Imagine how that played out with Bill. I will pause while you imagine it. Just like that. We worked on those books for about a decade, give or take, off and on. Pretty much every Wednesday evening and every Sunday evening for 4-hour stretches. Each time. And here I have to pause and I have to find Suzanne. Thank you. You have the patience of a six-pack of Mother Teresa's. He thought you hung the moon. It was evident in every gesture that he made when you were in the room, every moment that he looked at you. And although he never said as much to me, I know that he knew that he would not have become half the man that he became were it not for you. Michael and Shannon, if I heard more about how wonderful you were, I would puke. He talked about you two incessantly, about how proud he was of you, what you were doing, what you'd become, the projects you were taking on. And then when Jake came into the picture, and then Otis, it was like a whole world opened up for him of joy that even he had never known was possible. He was the best collaborator that any writer could ask for. To this day, people ask me far too often which parts of those books were Bill's and which parts were mine. Fucking stupid question. They were our books. We did them together. We bandied ideas back and forth. We argued a little. Okay, we argued a lot. We wrote certain paragraphs over and over and over again until both of us felt, okay, we'll live with it. Chapter 5 in book 1, I'm surprised either of us are still, got through that. I can't really say where he ended in those books and I began, or vice versa. It's a moot question. The thing that I was most shocked by, delighted by, I guess I should say, is that he didn't want what I initially thought he wanted, which was just a typist. He wanted a partner. Because Bill, being the consummate artist that he was, insisted on collaboration. He wanted someone who could augment his ideas, perhaps clarify them, throw in a few ideas of his own. It was like cooking. We were making a wonderful stew. It tasted so good. In many ways, in fact, Bill taught me to write. He was an excellent writer. Mostly what he taught me was the importance of waiting. Bill had such a talent for waiting. He wouldn't just wait for the words to come, he would wait for the right words to come. He wasn't afraid of emptiness. Pinter was famous for his pauses, but Bill Esper is justifiably famous for his interstices. How many of us sat there when he would just let himself drift? If he didn't feel something was right, if he didn't feel the word was right or the moment was right, or he just didn't know what was going on, he would sit and he would wait. He effectively lived by that old maxim that Franz Kafka left us: you do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen, simply wait. Be quiet, still, and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. Bill had a miraculous sense of stillness, something every artist, I think, should cultivate. He would wait, just like Kafka said. And in his waiting, it all paid off. the word would come, the moment would clarify itself, someone would walk through the door and say something. I remember one time we were working on a sentence that neither one of us could crack. 15 minutes went by, nobody said a word, and then finally Bill took his pencil from behind his ear and he said, "You want a ginger snap?" Maybe the best times that we had writing were when we weren't really writing at all. At least as far as my thing is, that's how it is. The writing comes when you're not really writing. The very best work gets done while you're shopping for groceries or staring out the window or fantasizing or picking up your son for the weekend or fiddling with the tension control on the typewriter. And most times you sort of have to pretend that the work isn't even there, so that it will come up to the table and sit. If you feed the muse chocolates and red wine, she comes back more often, go figure. And she generally tells you the truth more often. One time we were having one of those moments, one of those interstices where something had just happened in my life that I'm not going to go into now. It would destroy me to talk about it. So there was Bill. And rather than write, I asked him, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? What is it? What is it? What is this thing? What is life? I don't get it. I was lost, He says, life is just, it's a series of moments. And so I was feeling snide. And I said, oh, yeah? Well, fine. What's death then, huh? What's death? What's death? Huh? Gotcha, didn't I? Huh? He thought about it and he said, it's just another moment. I asked him if it scared him. He gave me the most honest answer I think anybody has to date. He looked around and he said, oh, sure, yeah. Who would want to leave all this? Just the way he waved his hand, I knew he wasn't talking about the ginger snaps or the kitchen or his apartment or Suzanne or the kids or the excellent school that he built or all of you, all of us, the legacy that he left. I wish you could see this. He was talking about the experience of being human, of being vulnerable and curious, a spirit just like any of the rest of us who's hitched a ride in one of those biodegradable space-time suits that we're all lugging about, just to see how this shit works. He was talking about being alive. Nothing more than that, just the beauty of being alive. And so, having had a little bit of time to think about this, I want to say something in closing. He only ever wanted two things out of the people that he worked with, just two things. And those two things are aligned exactly with the way he taught at the studio. The first thing he wanted out of people was the year one training, be yourself. That's it, just be yourself. If you don't know who that self is, figure it out. Be yourself, trust yourself, realize that each one of us carries within us the key to any door that we want to open. There's no one else like you anywhere. Trust that. Step two, year two, take that self, that person that you figured out, take that key and open a door, apply it to some creative problem. Yes, it could be a scene. Yes, it could be an acting problem. That was Bill's specialty, but he was a friend to artists everywhere. And I say that knowingly because I'm looking out at dancers and musicians and poets and writers and people who have left the business to become therapists and any other occupation you care to mention. They carry Bill's legacy with him. Yeah. No, it's okay. I just wanted to say that it's fitting that we're in this theater because it's a place where the cycle of life takes place. The curtain rises and the curtain falls and it rises again. Bill understood that very well. And thank you, Bill, for everything.
Next, I'd like to ask you to welcome another actor of power and grace. Ladies and gentlemen, David Morse.
You know, it's really extraordinary to be here with all of you. All of your lives that have been touched by Bill. You know, I think about my life. There's a pretty good number of people in my life who were there for me as a kind of divine intervention. A few of those people were a little more divinely intervening than others. Bill was one of those. He had a big assist from my friend Mary Joy. When I was 17 years old, I went straight from high school into a repertory theater in Boston. And over the course of about 6 years, I did all kinds of, plays and characters and, using funny voices and, making faces and makeup and getting lost and all of that. Well, my friend Mary, she was an actress in Boston. She moved to New York, and she studied with a man named William Esper. And she came back to Boston. And she said to me, I had to leave the repertory company I was with, move to New York, and study with her teacher. So I got an appointment with this man. I took the train to New York. And I went to meet him at a school called the Neighborhood Playhouse, which was unlike any school I'd ever seen. I was invited into a small office where William Esper and I talked. And the things that I remember about that conversation was Bill's gentle scrutiny of me, which was kind of a foreshadowing of things to come. But I also remember him saying that if I were to study with him, that I would have to stop acting for 2 years and devote myself entirely to his class. And all I could think was, oh my God, you mean I'm gonna have to get a job? Well, I got a job, and then I got another job, bartending, and of course I didn't stop acting for 2 years. Instead, in Bill's class, I did some of the most excruciating, exhilarating, embarrassing, enlightening acting of my life. I was so nervous in those classes, I had the runs for 2 years before every class. I've got the runs today. Thank God there was that bathroom outside outside his classroom in the hall at his 7th Avenue studio next to the strip club that I always wanted to go into and just take a peek, do a little research. Regretfully, I never did. But in Bill's class, a bar was set that I've tried to measure up to ever since. In Bill's class, he asked us not to be just actors, but to be artists and be proud of it. And he told us to go look at the great painters, go read the great literature, listen to the great music, think, or rather don't think, like the great Zen philosophers. Aspire to be what they are, how they get to be what they are, by telling their truth. their truth. Go tell your truth. That's what he told us. And then he gave us the tools to go tell our truth. And one of the great tools he gave us was to take the attention off ourselves and put it on each other. You know? Let our partner's life bring us to life. Let their life give us life. In the real world of acting, that can sometimes be a little more challenging than it should be. But in those classes where we were all putting our attention on each other and struggling with our way toward our truth, it really was magical. And then when we took that experience out into our lives, and then we took the attention off ourselves and put it on the people in our lives, it made us even richer, if not more annoying, human beings. One of the things that strikes me about our teacher is that while we were all fully putting our attention on each other, he was sitting there in his chair at the side of the class, fully putting his attention on us. Our life gave him life. And I've never been in the presence of anyone, especially a man who so thoroughly devoted himself to the person in front of him. And to be that person in front of him, it was really a rare gift. It was only occasionally pleasant, but it was always revealing, and it was always true. And I would say that it was always from love. Love for the art, which we all aspire to, but especially love for us, the vulnerable souls making their way toward their truth that he guided every day. And in Bill's first book, he says that an actor knows that this thing that we call life is nothing more than a series of moments strung together in a mystical chain. We're all a part of that mystical chain, where Bill was our guide and our companion for a time. And in the years since those classes, I've always felt that Bill was out there somewhere watching while I did my work. And I've always wanted him to be proud of me. And that hasn't changed. It's not going to change. Thank you, Bill. Suzanne, thank you. Michael, thank you. Shannon, Jake, thank you for letting all of us be here today to celebrate with you Bill's life.
Thank you, Bill Esper. We love you from Denmark.
This is Sarah from Copenhagen. My thoughts goes to you, Suzanne, Shannon, and Michael. And you, Bill, you'll always be in my heart. I used to live in New York, and I studied with Bill at the studio from 91 till 94. I gave birth to my son, Max, in 94, and I moved back to Denmark, where I still live, in 99. I am very privileged that I have known Bill and Suzanne for all these years. I managed to convince Bill and Suzanne to come to Denmark and teach workshops at the Actors Union and at the National Danish Film School several times. These workshops and these weeks we spent together means the world to me. We developed a big, close friendship, also with my son Max, and you made an impact at the whole Danish acting community. I think there's been more than 200 actors and directors passing through you guys' hands. And now actually it's possible to become a member of the Actors Union if you've been graduated from the studio which is the only school, except from the National Danish School, that allows that. I feel so lucky that I've known Bill Esper as a teacher, my mentor, and my friend. And I feel so lucky that I know you, Suzanne, as a teacher, my mentor, and my friend. My thoughts goes to all of you on this very special day. I would wish I could be there, but it's not possible. But I'm thinking of you.
My heart broke when I heard Bill passed away. I'm sending you love and strength. Suzanne, Shannon, Michael. I wish I could be with you today in New York. Bill was everything for me. A master teacher, a great man of the theater, an inspiring artist, and a wonderful friend with a great sense of humor. You changed the course of my life. Bill's thoughts stay alive in me because he made me the artist I am today. I learned from Bill an incredible acting technique. To work truthful, to make strong choices as an artist without fear. Bill gave me artistic freedom. What a gift. Bill Esper's wisdom will continue. You influenced so many artists, actors, directors all over the world. Your work lives in all of us and will continue. Now, Bill, you are up in heaven, and I'm sure you run up there the theater department to make out of all these angels truthful actors. What a mission. I'm looking forward to meet you one day up there. And I apply for your masterclass. I miss you so much.
So, last week, I dreamt with Bill. And I was surprised because this was the first time ever I've dreamt with him. And guess what? He was still teaching. I was at his class, and he had the most peaceful, generous look. And I felt that, well, I think Bill will stay with me forever, and I still learn with him after he's not present physically anymore. I'm very thankful to Bill and his family. I'm very thankful to Esper Studio for everything you did for me.
Dear Suzanne and the entire Esper family, universe, I guess. My condolences from Oslo, Norway, to you, and being so happy that I've had the opportunity to meet Bill and be a part of his work, both as an actor and as a human being. His heart was so huge, and he was so full of love. And also the man behind two words that changed my entire life as an actor. This man, full of wisdom and clarity, just said, you know what? Fuck it. And all of my love goes out to you on this day. And I wish you all the best.
I'm Ahmed Kamil. I was Bill's student from 2006 to 2008. One piece of advice that I live by is seek and you shall find. He always used to tell me that. Bill, I know you're smiling down on us from heaven today as we celebrate you and your life and your legacy. You had a huge, huge, huge impact on my life. A simple girl from Saudi Arabia who never thought she could be an actress. So I want to thank you, and I want to let you know that I am so grateful for you and for your family, and may your legacy lives on in them.
My name is Tuli Zuma. I'm a South African actor, writer, and director. Bill was such a generous and kind teacher. He was very patient, but he did not take shit. You couldn't BS him. He was uninterested in excuses, but he was sincere, and he loved his work, and he loved us, his students, and we loved him. The impact that Bill has had on my life spans far further than the 2 years I was under his tutelage. To say that studying at the Esper studio, studying with Bill, changed my life is in no way hyperbole. It was a transformative experience. It was life-changing. It was life-affirming. The impact that Bill has made, not just in my life, but in our industry as a whole, but more importantly in the world, is something that will ripple on for generations. His legacy lives on.
Ich möchte diesen Preis einem ganz großen Mann widmen, der in New York sitzt, namens Bill Esper, und der bedeutet mir sehr viel. Und ich habe ihm gesagt, wenn ich meinen ersten Preis gewinne, dann widme ich ihm ihn, und er hat ihn voll, also das ist, geht nach New York an Bill Esper für mich. Ja, vielen Dank und auf einen schönen Abend heute noch. Dankeschön.
I was like, Christopher, you came! They all said they're gonna come. But you finally came, so he hugged me and he was like, he was so open. So I always felt so safe, and it was so nice to work with him. And he was really happy. He was like, yeah, I want to show you all this stuff. You have to start working. And I mean, it's like whenever I work on something, it's sort of, I see Bill and I remember the class, and I use all those things more or less. I mean, a year later I won the Austrian Film Prize, which I dedicated to Bill. Everyone who worked with him would say the same thing about him. It's just really fascinating how someone can be so clear, so generous, and a true master in what he's doing. I think it's a great responsibility you have, especially to teach something. And there are a lot of approaches out there, and I'm glad I found Bill. To listen, to be specific, to find the essence of the character. For me, my most important tool was that I found fun again. And I mean, you get all those tools, statements and concepts which still resonate in my head somehow, and I still try to apply all of them, but it all makes perfectly sense. For me, Bill, I felt like Bill was like Yoda to Luke Skywalker. That's how I felt, and I'm still trying to figure out all those things I've learned. It takes many years. I mean, he taught for more than 50 years, but it felt like he did that for hundreds of years. I don't know, I remember him singing, "Every little moment has a meaning of its own."
For your entire life, so listen with an open heart, and then the world just might. For acting is doing, simple and specific is the way. Give up, give in, give way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Christine Lahti, please.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you. Stephen, I just want to say that the fact that Bill Esper mentioned me in class, I think I can just die now. Because I, like so many of you, wanted nothing more than for him to be proud of me. So that really just blew my mind. So thank you for sharing that. I am so honored to be here today to help celebrate the extraordinary Bill Esper. And I give my love and deepest sympathy to you, Suzanne, Michael, and Shannon. I can only imagine how difficult this time has been for you. But today, as so many have so beautifully expressed, is a time to celebrate. And there is so much to celebrate about Bill Esper. He was a giant, and the trail that he left on this earth is remarkable and indelible. His brilliance, his passion for acting, his love of actors clearly touched, inspired, and changed the lives of so many. I feel like I hit the acting jackpot having studied with Bill Esper. I was 25 years old when I took his classes, and although I had already studied with several other teachers, charlatans, frauds, I was still an actor in search of any real technique. Just about everything I know and value and still passionately love about acting, I learned from this man. He helped bring my craft from my head down to my heart. He taught me how to lose self-consciousness and nerves by taking my focus off myself. I learned how to really listen from him, how to do emotional preparations, how to be truly present and alive in my work, you know, just the small, unimportant stuff. All these invaluable techniques and so many more I use every single time I am working. I still have all my copious notes that I took in his classes from over 40 years ago, and they remain my Bibles. Every time I get nervous on stage or in front of cameras, which is almost always, all I have to do is think of him and remind myself of WWBS, what would Bill say? And it works always like a dream. I can usually sense when I'm working with an actor who was trained by Bill. They're usually the most present and truthful, and they're always the most fun because they love to play. When I see an extraordinarily alive and authentic performance on stage, I'm never surprised to look in the playbill and see that they have, yes, studied with Bill Esper. And if all that weren't enough for me to be incredibly grateful to this man, during those 2 years when I studied with him, and I don't think I ever shared this with him, which I regret, but he also helped change me as a person in a much needed fundamental way. You know how sometimes in life there are guardian angels who come at the perfect moment, like when you find the right teacher at just the right time? Well, before I started classes with Bill, I had unfortunately met several men who actively tried to discourage me from pursuing my acting dream. They were men in the business who I respected, whose approval I desperately sought, who told me that I should just give up, that I would never make it as an actress because I, quote, wasn't special enough, unquote. They went on to say it was because I wasn't really pretty enough. I was from Michigan, and I didn't know anybody in show business. I was definitely too tall, and one even said that I had, quote, no light to shed upon the human existence. I swear to you, he said that. And it devastated me. Now, I should also share that one of these men was a professional actor who I had just recently rejected sexually. And one was an alcoholic agent. A third one was a casting director who told me that I got 2 national commercials, which was amazing. And the only catch was that I had to have sex with the 2 directors. When I refused, this casting director told me that it was just a reality for someone as unspecial as I was, and that I was a fool to think that I would make it any other way. Though, of course, I went on to be grateful to all of these men because they made me stronger and more determined than ever to prove the motherfuckers wrong. In spite of that, their words devastated me at the time. But what Bill Esper taught me, and what I so desperately needed to learn, and it was something that had never, ever occurred to me, was that I was enough. That this person, this human being, this woman was special enough. That actually, in fact, good acting was all about our own unique voices, our individual experiences and perspectives. That what made us different was to be celebrated. That plus a rich imagination and a lot of really hard work. And as Bill said, the sky was the limit. I am so obviously grateful for that gift. I heard you, Bill. I believed you. I walked out of your class after 2 years and I never looked back. And he made sure that every student in that class owned that truth. As a teacher, we all know that his bark could be fierce, but his bite was always gentle. His ability to be honest, but always loving and supportive was uncanny. He was and always will be a giant in the acting world and a real game changer for me. Thank you, Bill, for all the ways you helped to open up my heart in my work and in my life. Aren't we all so lucky that we knew him? I love you, Bill.
Bill once said to me about our next guest that when she sings a song like an exquisitely acted Spoon River. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tonya Pinkins.
There you are, Suzanne. Before I sing, it's just so awesome to be in the room with all of these people. We have all these sort of inside jokes about the experience of being with Bill, and it came back to me listening that the first time I came across Bill was when I was 15 years old, and I studied with Bill at the St. Nicholas Theater in Chicago. And then I went on to have a professional career for 10 years before I came and studied with him at the studio. And it was because during those 10 years of being on Broadway, I just wasn't enjoying the work. I worked all the time, and people would say I was talented, but I didn't enjoy it. And Bill changed my life by saying, it is the thing that you imagine and dream up in the room that excites you that makes you a great actor. And if you go to an audition and you don't get the job, be grateful, because they probably didn't like that thing you were doing and they were going to make you miserable doing something else. And I have never, and since then I have loved doing what I do because Bill taught me that when I could dream up something that excited me, that was what I was put on the earth to do. He gave me lots of advice that I share with my students, but this is a private one, and I want to share it. The one thing he told me that I didn't follow, he was absolutely right, but I didn't follow it for the right reasons. I was pregnant with my first son when I took the first year, and then in the second year, I carried my son in my little fanny pack as I did the object exercises. And at the end of the 2 years, he said to me, "Do not have any more children." He said, "You're a really fine actress, and if you stop and have children, all of the actors you're coming up with will go ahead of you. They will have opportunities, and you will never be able to catch up with them. You will lose that. He said, my wife, Suzanne, is a brilliant actress. And she walked away from it to raise our children. And I followed in Suzanne's footsteps, and I have 4 children that I'm very proud to have. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Bill.
to yesterday.
Thank you, Tonya. And now, our studio director, Bill's partner in life and art, and my friend, Suzanne Esper.
There's so much I wanted to say, and we've so little time. I'm going to really make this very brief indeed. But one thing is how very, I wish I could see you, how very, very grateful I am, and I know Michael and Shannon are, and for your generosity. The outpouring of affection and respect for Bill that we have received has been incredibly supportive for us. He would be astonished at this event. He would be amazed. He would be so, so grateful that so many students and those who have given their time to talk have come here. And that, to me, when you think about it, is extraordinary in itself, because he's a living example as a teacher of what he taught us as actors, in that you focus on the problem at hand. You're not concerned about the result. And good God, the results are here. He started the studio with 4 students, you know, 3 of them on scholarship. And so, yes, that is true. And it is that word of mouth that you hear, not by self-promotion, but by simply the quality of his work, that all of this has evolved. That's an extraordinary fact. We'll never see the likes of that again. I have so little time, I must wrap this up. But at the end, what? Oh, we do? Yes. Oh, great. Okay, now I've got to backtrack. Okay. Well, in that case, after this, I'll still be brief, though. Okay. Okay, so that you can see the video, I'll be brief. I met Bill coming to New York, as so many of you did, with a secret childhood dream and a passion to discover about art and an excitement to absorb myself in anything I could that was about the theater, about acting, and found Sandy and found Bill, fortunately, and I found Utopia. I had them both as my primary teachers. It was at the end of the second year that this man gobsmacked me. And our lives very quickly, both of us, very quickly were radically altered. The studio has been his primary, as I said, it began so small, his primary involvement. And you've heard about how he's expanded it into language, and his capacity for growth, and his curiosity about people, and his love of the student, and watching it never ended. In fact, in the very difficult stages of the last part of his life, when he lay in a hospital bed in our loft, I was leaving for work all day to teach, and I was saying goodbye to him. And he found somehow the words, "Take me with you. Take me with you." And I couldn't, of course, bring him to the studio, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to come. He wanted to be with students. He wanted to have what everybody said, that life come back to him, and his absorption with yet another young person, yet another problem, yet another piece of humanity to deal with. But then there's the other side of that, take me with you. Because, of course, how could I not? He's with me in everything, every breath I breathe. But he's with you. He's with you, too. He said that he loved to think the saying that Louis Horst was the wall against which Martha Graham grew as an actress, as an artist. He loved that, and he felt that he, Sandy Meisner, was the wall against which Bill grew as an artist. And I would say that he is the wall against which we grew as artists. There is a, if we could have a fantasy for a moment, that Bill's life as a teacher, as a mentor, as a director, is an exercise in the classroom. He's the one living out this exercise. And we, collectively, are sitting behind the desk. And we're observing and experiencing this exercise. I think at the conclusion of that exercise, we couldn't just say, that's okay. That's okay. I think we'd have to say, well done. Well done.
Hi, we're very lucky. Michael Esper has agreed to speak with us this afternoon. So, oh God, you guys, holy crap. Woo! He would have loved this so much. I mean, this is so incredibly beautiful. You all came into this theater and you brought him to life here in this space that he adored, and you let me spend time with my father. And I don't know how to thank you for that. I'm not gonna, I think. It's probably how that's gonna shake out. So, I mean, I really just wanna stand up here on stage and tell you every single thing that I love about my dad, just every huge and minute thing, but I can't do that. That is just a way too long a speech. So I will have to just do it for the rest of my life to absolutely anyone who will listen. I mean, it's just not possible to iterate here all the things that Dad gave us. Where are you guys? Oh, there you are. And how freely he did. He wasn't stingy with the things he loved. They weren't to be locked away in places we'd never understand. They were immediately accessible to us. They were there for us anytime. You know, here, come look at this. Shakespeare, Mozart, Rilke, Jimmy Buffett. There were open gardens, come and go as you please, stay as long as you like. You know, he gave us an open invitation into the world of art and language and craft and play. He said, don't be afraid, you can do it, it'll be fun. He was a great teacher, but I think it was more important to him to be loving than it was to be great. And so he was the best fucking dad. It's like once in London, he came to see me in this play. And in this play, everyone had been nominated for an award, and I didn't get nominated for an award, and he was pissed. Which was my favorite thing. And he said to me after the show, I mean, the treasure trove of beautiful things my father said to me after shows, which I will always be grateful for. He said to me, what else do they want? What more could they possibly want? And that's it. That's what it was like. That's what else do you want in a dad? What could you possibly want? Name it. That's it. He was it. You know, unless you were thinking of outdoorsy, in which case
But being a great dad, it wasn't a given for him. And that's really the thing that I want to talk about, because the journey of our Father's life with us, the line of it is really something, and I think it is the greatest thing he made. And I'm biased, but I came into my dad's life at a tough time for him, I think. You know, from what he would tell me later, his upbringing wasn't easy. His model for family life was complex. The flaws in its architecture were significant. You know, there was frightening conflict and dire economic pressure and instability on every level. And the strengths were there too. Of course, there was love in his childhood and a deep work ethic, and a mother whose imagination was so vivid and gorgeous and powerful, it at times threatened to overtake her completely, and Tennessee Williams would have ridden the shit out of her. But he had no real model for what a family should be, for how to be a husband or dad, or what that even was really, how to raise a child. I mean, he was still struggling with understanding his own childhood. And he was working, as we've said, superhumanly to build his professional life, to build the legacy that we're honoring today. And it was hard on him, and he was tough then, as we've heard a little bit about. I mean, I know students who would come up to me sometimes when I was a kid, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're Bill Esper's son?" And I'd be like, "Yes." And they'd be like, "Whew." "Oh, yeah? Yeah, you kicked me out of class yesterday." And I'd be like, "Tell me about it." But also another part of me would be like, "Well, maybe if your crafting wasn't so shitty." So he could be tough. He was larger than life to me at the time. And so were his feelings and his judgments and his thoughts. And when he was angry, I thought the world would crack open. It did crack open. And he was sometimes far away, and there was Verdi on the walls. And at times, it seemed to me like all of art itself sparked and arced between his fingertips like lightning. He said what was good and what was not. He could be scary. And I know he would hate me saying that, but Dad, I'm getting to the best part. Because then, and I don't know if it was just the unquestionable power of our mother, or his love for her and us, but the most incredible thing happened. Before I was even a teenager, he did the most incredible thing. He started to change. He started to change the way he was with us, who he was with us, and how he was with us in the most remarkable way. He became gentler, he became more open, more sensitive to us, more present and more tender, proud and attentive, supportive and available, more loving. And I know it wasn't some natural transition, some inevitable softening with age. He chose it, and he worked for it, and he did it. And watching him over the years in class and at home, I learned a lot about teaching, but remarkably, what I learned from him most was to be teachable. And that I learned by example, because even with all of his extraordinary authority and knowledge and ability, his genius, because I do think he was a genius, it's hard to watch him teach and not think that. Even with all that power, he always listened and tried to see you, to learn what you were needing and not needing. And even if what you were needing was to argue with him, he'd do it. Learning what propped you up and what hurt your feelings. He was sensitive to you. He wanted to give us both room to grow up and something to grow up against. He wanted us to become ourselves. And he could help us get there in part by listening, and that listening was a tremendous act of love. And so it's because of him I know that change is possible. To me, it's like the most central thing about his life and work. That if you want to, you can become something different. That imagination, love, willingness, and work were the keys to the kingdom, and that kingdom possessed who and what you wanted to be and whatever you wanted to express, and there you could be free. His life grew towards kindness and gentility, support and understanding, warmth and inclusion, toward loving. That was its trajectory, towards really just being present and loving. And I just think that in a lifetime of extraordinary accomplishments, accomplishments that I will always be proud of and honor and defend. That was his greatest achievement. And anyway, it was the one he truly made us feel was the most important to him. That we could stand here and say, our heads swimming with every fucking loving moment, that he was a wonderful father. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. What he said. So I just want to thank all my fellow teachers at the studio. I want to thank Lahti, Adly, and Jessica for helping put this together, and Jared, and Lydia, and everyone in the office. And in closing, we will simply say, good night, sweet prince. And may flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.